Ma'am, you are under arrest.
On what grounds?
Rain slicked the streetlights into rivers of gold and red across the windshield as Marcus Reed eased his black BMW to the curb. He'd just finished a 12-hour day defending a client pro bono, a young man accused of a crime Marcus knew he didn't commit. All he wanted now was silence, but flashing blue lights tore through the dark behind him. License and registration. The voice was sharp, commanding, already angry. Two officers approached, one tapping a flashlight against the glass, the other resting a hand on his holster. Marcus lowered the window, calm but wary. "Is there a problem, officer?" The beam hit his face. "Step out of the car," the cop ordered. No explanation. No reason. Marcus blinked. "I'm an attorney." "I just left the courthouse. Step out now." The world slowed, the rain, the pulsing lights, his heart. His hand trembled as he reached for his wallet. And suddenly, the cop yanked the door open, dragged him out, slammed him against the car. "Stop resisting." "I'm not resisting," Marcus gasped, pain shooting down his arms as cold cuffs bit into his wrists. Someone filmed from a phone across the street. A woman's voice. He didn't do anything. But the officer leaned close, whispering a line that sliced through him like a blade. "Doesn't matter who you are tonight." The rain intensified. Marcus looked up. Blue lights reflected in puddles. His own reflection warped as the camera kept rolling. And the city watched another story it thought it had seen before. Only this time they had arrested the wrong man. Rain hammered the hood of Marcus Reed's BMW, a syncopated rhythm against the hum of jazz spilling softly from the radio. Midnight in downtown Atlanta, the streets nearly empty, glistening from a storm that refused to quit. He'd just left the courthouse, the last lights of the building flickering behind him. It had been a long week and a public defender's grind, but tonight he felt proud. He'd won a dismissal for a 19-year-old accused of robbery. Justice for once had worked. Then the sirens came. Blue light strobed in his rearview mirror. His pulse jumped. He wasn't speeding. He wasn't swerving. Still, he pulled over, rolling the window halfway down as two officers approached. "Evening, officers," he said, keeping his hands visible. The taller one, Officer Daniels, aimed his flashlight straight into Marcus's eyes. "License and registration." Marcus reached slowly toward the glove compartment. "May I ask what this is about?" "You fit the description," the other officer muttered. Marcus froze. "Description?" "Black male, dark vehicle, leaving the area of a burglary." "I'm coming from the courthouse," Marcus said. "I'm an attorney." He offered his bar card with his license. Daniels barely glanced at it. "Step out of the vehicle." "I just explained out, now." Marcus sighed, pushing open the door. The rain hit him like needles. The second officer moved behind him. "Hands on the car." "For what reason?" Daniels' voice hardened. "You resisting a lawful order?" "No, I'm asking." Suddenly a shove. His chest hit cold metal. The cuffs clicked tight. Pain seared through his wrists. "Officer, you're making a mistake." Daniels leaned in, breath hot, bitter with coffee. "You think your fancy degree makes you special?" Marcus met his glare. "It should make me safe." That line hung in the rain like smoke. A woman across the street yelled, "He didn't do nothing." Her phone raised, red light blinking. "Camera," muttered the younger cop. Daniels hesitated, but not long. "Then let them film," he said, voice low. "We got nothing to hide." Marcus felt the weight of every raindrop, every heartbeat, every humiliation he'd ever defended others against. The world blurred. The cuffs cut deeper, and as they shoved him into the back of the cruiser, he saw his own reflection in the glass, unfractured, doubled by blue lights, and thought, "They'll believe them before they believe me." The morning broke gray and indifferent, like the city had already moved on. Marcus sat on the edge of his bed, wrists raw, shirt still wrinkled from the night before. The smell of damp metal and concrete clung to him. The holding cell had been cold, windowless, and filled with silence thick enough to choke. Naomi stood by the dresser, scrolling through her phone. Her hands shook. "It's everywhere," she whispered. Marcus looked up. "What is?" She turned the screen toward him. The headline read, "Black man resists arrest after traffic stop in Midtown. Officers under review." Below, a blurry thumbnail showed him, face pressed against his BMW, rain pouring, cuffs glinting under the flashing lights. The video had over 400,000 views. Naomi's voice cracked. They're saying you were aggressive, that you shouted. Look at the comments. I don't need to, he said quietly. I already know what they say. But she read anyway, as if unable to stop herself. Typical. Probably hiding something. Should have complied. The phone slipped from her fingers and landed on the carpet with a dull thud. Marcus exhaled. Slow, deliberate, the way he did before a cross-examination. But this wasn't a courtroom. This was their home, and the jury was already out there in the thousands, scrolling and judging. Did they at least release a statement? He asked. Naomi shook her head. Just that the matter's under review. He closed his eyes. Under review? He'd heard that phrase too many times. It was where justice went to die quietly. The knock at the door startled them both. Naomi stiffened. You expecting anyone? Marcus shook his head and walked slowly to the door. Through the peephole, a familiar face, Daryl, his colleague from the firm. He opened the door halfway. Hey, Marcus, Daryl said, lowering his voice. I came as soon as I saw the news. Naomi crossed her arms. News? It's gossip now, Daryl sighed. The partners are in damage control mode. Clients are calling, asking questions. They're saying it's best if you take a leave of absence until things calm down. Marcus blinked. A leave? I didn't do anything wrong. I know that. But public image, Marcus cut him off. Public image didn't get thrown on the hood of a car last night. Naomi's voice softened. Daryl, you saw the video. They humiliated him. Daryl nodded reluctantly. I did, and it's awful. But these things get political fast. The city, the precinct, the media. They'll circle wagons. You know how it goes. Marcus laughed bitterly. Yes, I do. I've defended people who never got that benefit of the doubt. Now it's my turn, and suddenly everyone's afraid to stand too close. Daryl lowered his eyes. I'm just the messenger. Marcus stepped back, tone cool. Then deliver one for me. Tell them I'll be back when I clear my name. When the door closed, Naomi leaned her forehead against the wall, whispering, We can't fight everyone, Marcus. He touched her shoulder gently. I'm not fighting everyone. Just the truth. By noon, reporters were parked outside their driveway, cameras aimed like weapons. Marcus refused interviews, but snippets of the story filled every channel. Words like resisting, belligerent, and unknown suspect floated across the screen. None of them said lawyer, none said wrongfully arrested. When his phone buzzed again, he almost didn't answer, but the caller ID made him pause. Judge Wallace, a man Marcus had admired since law school. Marcus, came the deep, cautious voice. I saw the footage. Yes, Your Honor. I'm sorry this happened, Wallace said. Truly, but I want you to know things like this, they can stick. Be careful how you move forward. Careful? Marcus repeated. They arrested me for driving home. I mean in how you respond. Lawsuits, statements, and these things get political. The courts don't like politics, Marcus clenched his jaw. With respect, sir, this isn't politics. It's my life, a pause. I know. But the law isn't always built for our kind of truth. The call ended before Marcus could reply. He stared at the silent phone in his hand, the judge's words echoing in his head. Our kind of truth. That evening, Naomi tried to convince him to eat. He pushed the plate away. I can't just sit here, he said. They'll bury it if I don't act. Act how? I'm filing a lawsuit, Naomi blinked. Against the city? Against everyone involved. The officers, the precinct, the department. I'll make them answer in court, not on the evening news. She frowned. You think they'll let you? They'll find a way to spin it. You'll be the angry black lawyer who couldn't handle an arrest. He looked at her, eyes dark but steady. Then they'll finally see what that looks like. Naomi turned away, fighting tears. I just don't want to lose you over this. Marcus stood and walked to the window. Outside, the reporter's lights blinked faintly through the blinds. Red and white like the cruiser lights from last night, he whispered almost to himself. Maybe losing is the only way they ever let us win. Later that night, he sat alone at his desk, laptop open. He began typing the notice of intent to sue, the first draft of his civil rights claim. The cursor blinked at the top of the page, bright and accusing. Plaintiff, Marcus A. Reed. Attorney at law. Defendants, Officer Daniel Price, Officer Robert Taylor, and the City of Atlanta Police Department. Each keystroke landed like a heartbeat. Outside, thunder rolled again. Naomi's voice called softly from the bedroom. "Marcus, come to bed." "In a minute," he murmured. He reread the opening line he'd written. "This complaint is not about anger. It is about accountability." His fingers hovered, then resumed typing. The night deepened and the storm outside raged on, as if the sky itself refused to rest. The precinct smelled of coffee, wet uniforms, and fear pretending to be routine. Officer Daniel Price sat at his desk, staring at the internal affairs memo on his monitor. The subject line read, "Use of Force Investigation, Incident 0873. He rubbed his temples. Christ. Across from him, Sergeant Miller leaned against a filing cabinet, sipping from a chipped mug. "You'll be fine," he said. "Standard procedure. Just keep your report consistent with Taylor's." "Yeah," Daniels muttered. "Consistent," Miller shrugged. "Guy's a lawyer, right?" They always push back. "It'll blow over." Daniels wanted to believe that. He'd been on the force 8 years, long enough to know how these things usually went. Internal Affairs would ask questions, he'd answer them, and everyone would move on. Except this time, everyone wasn't moving on. The video was everywhere. Morning shows, blogs, even national outlets. The clip showed Daniel's hand shoving Marcus Reed against the hood of his car. The words, "You think your fancy degree makes you special?" echoed across comment sections like an accusation. He couldn't even remember saying it. Daniels. The voice snapped him out of thought. It was Captain Reynolds' square-shouldered, voice like gravel, in my office. Daniels followed him in, closing the door behind. Reynolds gestured toward a chair. "Sit." On the desk sat a printout of the incident report and a laptop frozen on the viral video's thumbnail. "Tell me what I'm looking at," Reynolds said flatly. Daniels swallowed. Suspect fit the description of a burglary call. He was non-compliant. Non-compliant? Reynolds raised an eyebrow. "He was standing there asking why you stopped him. He was argumentative," Daniel said. "Argumentative isn't a crime," Reynolds replied. "And the man's a lawyer, for God's sake." "You didn't think twice?" Daniels stiffened. "Sir, we didn't know who he was at the time." Reynolds' gaze hardened. "That's the point, isn't it?" Silence pressed between them. After a moment, the captain leaned back. "IA's gonna want your statement by Friday. Until then, keep your head down. No patrols. Desk duty." Daniels clenched his jaw. "You're benching me?" "I'm protecting you," Reynolds said. "And maybe protecting the department too." That night, Daniels sat alone in his apartment, lights off, TV flickering muted news coverage. The headline read, "Civil Rights Attorney to File Lawsuit After Controversial Arrest." The anchor's voice buzzed in the background as a reporter stood in front of City Hall. Marcus Reed, a respected defense lawyer, says he intends to sue the Atlanta Police Department for wrongful arrest and excessive force. Community leaders are calling for accountability. Daniels muted the sound and stared at the screen. His phone vibrated. A message from Taylor, his partner. "Don't talk to anyone. Union's got our backs." Another came seconds later. "Remember the blue line." Daniels typed back. "Yeah," then deleted it before sending. He turned off the TV. In the dark reflection of the screen, he could still see Marcus's face, calm, dignified, bleeding slightly at the lip. And it hit him that he'd cuffed a man for nothing more than existing in the wrong car, at the wrong time with the wrong skin. The next morning, the precinct was louder than usual. Officers huddled in groups, voices low but sharp, guys milking it for attention. Lawyer or not, he shouldn't have mouthed off. "Now we all look like villains." Daniels walked past, ignoring them, but every word stuck like a burr. He felt the weight of eyes, not sympathy, not condemnation, just the quiet, defensive solidarity that came with the badge. At his desk, an envelope waited. Internal Affairs, he opened it. The formal language was cold, bureaucratic. Surgical. "You are required to provide a full written statement concerning the events of September 18th. Failure to comply may result in disciplinary action." Below it, a note handwritten by the union rep. "Stick to the script. You followed procedure." Daniel stared at the line for a long time, his jaw tightening. Stick to the script. Across town, Marcus was doing the opposite. He sat in a small conference room at his law firm, recording his statement for the media. The firm's PR consultant, Amira Patel, set up the camera. "This isn't about revenge," Marcus said, eyes steady into the lens. "It's about accountability. I was treated as less than a man because of the color of my skin. And if it can happen to me, a lawyer, it can happen to anyone." Amira nodded. "Perfect, powerful, we'll post it tonight." Naomi sat in the corner, arms wrapped around herself. She didn't speak. Marcus noticed, but didn't comment. When the video went live, it exploded, shared across platforms, reposted by civil rights groups and legal associations. Within hours, the department's inbox overflowed with demands for comment. And inside the precinct, Daniels felt the shift, the blue wall trembling under public pressure. Later that week, during his internal affairs interview, Daniels faced Detective Shaw, a quiet woman with a notepad and an expression that gave nothing away. "Officer Price," she began, "walk us through the stop." He recited the report verbatim, the call about the burglary, the matching vehicle, the non-compliance. Shaw didn't interrupt. When he finished, she leaned forward slightly. "And at what point did Mr. Reed pose a threat?" "He didn't," Daniels admitted. Shaw's pen paused. "So the use of force was based on?" He hesitated. "Procedure. Procedure?" Daniels swallowed hard. He questioned authority. Shaw's eyebrow twitched. The closest thing to emotion she showed. "Questioning authority isn't a crime, Officer Price." He looked down. "No, ma'am." When the interview ended, she closed her folder and said quietly, "Sometimes the hardest thing to protect isn't the department. It's your conscience." Her words stayed with him long after she left. That night, Daniels drove aimlessly through the city, the same streets where he'd pulled Marcus over. The rain returned, and soft, relentless. He parked outside the courthouse, the steps glistening under streetlights. Somewhere inside, Marcus Reed was likely preparing motions, building a case. Daniels gripped the steering wheel, torn between fear and guilt. The thin blue line he'd sworn to uphold suddenly felt like a noose tightening around his neck, a line that didn't protect justice, only silence. He thought of texting Taylor, or the union rep, or even Reynolds. But the words that came to him weren't for them. They were for the man he'd wronged. I'm sorry he didn't send it. Instead, he watched the courthouse doors as if expecting Marcus to walk out. The man he'd cuffed, now ready to turn the law itself against them. For the first time in his career, Daniels didn't feel like an officer. He felt like a defendant. The phone hadn't stopped ringing in 3 days. Reporters, activists, strangers, calling with offers of support or threats. Marcus had stopped answering after the 50th voicemail. He just sat at his kitchen table, laptop open, screen glowing with legal filings and hate mail in equal measure. The cursor blinked beside the subject line. Reed v. City of Atlanta. Et al. Naomi placed a cup of coffee beside him. "You've been up all night. I need to finalize the complaint before the deadline," he said without looking up. "Every detail has to be perfect. They'll tear apart anything they can." Her voice was soft but tired. "And when do you get to rest?" "When it's done." She pulled out a chair, sitting across from him. "I read some of the comments on that news article. I told you not to. They said you're exploiting the system, Marcus. That you're trying to make money off race," he exhaled sharply. "They think justice is a hustle because they've never needed it." Naomi's eyes shimmered. "I'm scared. They know your name, our address. Someone threw a brick at the office window yesterday." He froze. "What?" "It didn't break through. Security caught it on the camera. They said it was a teenager, probably a dare, but still." He rubbed his forehead. "I didn't ask for this, Naomi." "I know," she whispered. "But you lit a fire, and fires don't choose what they burn." Later that morning, Marcus arrived at his firm. The air inside felt colder, the kind of silence that follows gossip. His colleagues glanced up as he entered, then quickly looked back down at their screens. He walked past the open glass walls to the corner office. His name still gleamed on the door, Marcus Reed, Associate Attorney. But the sight of it stung. Inside waited Darrell's again. "Marcus," he started carefully. "There's been discussion. Let me guess. The partners want me gone. They're concerned about the publicity," Darrell said, avoiding his eyes. "Some clients are threatening to pull their contracts. They said your case is making the firm political." Marcus laughed bitterly. "Since when is justice political?" Darrell sighed. "You know what I mean. The partners are old school. They want calm waters, not headlines. Marcus crossed his arms. So they'd rather protect their comfort than my rights? Daryl didn't answer. After a long silence, Marcus said quietly, "Tell them I resign." "Marcus, don't. I can't fight for justice while working for people who fear it." Outside, the city buzzed, a low, endless hum of sirens, engines, and murmurs. Marcus walked aimlessly down Peachtree Street, raincoat flapping in the breeze. His reflection flashed in dark storefronts, distorted by passing headlights. His phone vibrated. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, then answered. "Mr. Reed?" a female voice said. "This is Carla Jennings with the city attorney's office. I'm calling to discuss your recent notice of intent." Marcus's tone hardened. "I assume you mean my lawsuit?" "Yes." "The city would prefer to resolve this matter quietly." He stopped walking. "You're offering a settlement?" "Let's say a compromise. A statement of regret and financial compensation. No admission of wrongdoing." Marcus's jaw tightened. "You want me to sell my dignity for a press release?" "Mr. Reed," Carla said smoothly, "you know how these things go. Dragging it into court helps no one. You'll be painted as difficult, angry. It'll hurt your reputation more than it helps your cause." "Then maybe the truth should be difficult," Marcus said. "Maybe it should hurt." "Think about it," she replied. "Before this gets bigger than either of us can control." The line clicked dead. Marcus stood in the drizzle, heart pounding. For a long time, he didn't move. That evening, Naomi found him on the balcony, staring at the city lights. "Who was on the phone earlier?" she asked. "The city attorney. They offered hush money, and I told them no." She leaned against the railing beside him. "You're fighting the whole system, Marcus. They'll twist every word you say. Even winning might not look like victory." He nodded slowly. "Maybe not. But I need to show them there's a cost to this silence." Naomi's eyes softened. "And what's the cost to you?" He didn't answer. The silence between them said enough. Days blurred into weeks. The lawsuit hit the media. Front page coverage, evening talk shows, opinion columns. The words racial profiling and civil rights violation echoed across every platform. Marcus became both symbol and target. Invitations from advocacy groups poured in, and hate mail came just as fast. Late one night, he scrolled through his inbox. One message stopped him cold. "You think you're some hero? You're a disgrace. You people never learn. No name. Just venom." He stared at it, thumb hovering over the delete key. Then he closed the laptop. He wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Instead, he pulled out the old photo on his desk. His father, a retired postal worker, standing in front of their small house in Birmingham. His father had once told him, "Son, some fights find you even when you're tired of fighting." Now, Marcus finally understood. The next morning, he met with Amira, the PR consultant who'd helped him with his first video. "We're getting invitations for interviews," she said. "National networks. Civil rights panels. They want your story." Marcus shook his head. "I'm not a story. I'm a witness," Amira smiled faintly. "That's exactly why they need to hear you." He looked out the window at the courthouse standing tall across the street. "Then they'll hear me there first." Amira tilted her head. "You mean?" "I'm representing myself," he said. "No firm, no filters, just me and the law." Amira blinked. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." She hesitated, then smiled. "That'll make history, one way or another." When Marcus told Naomi that night, she didn't argue. She just sat quietly beside him on the couch, her hand over his. "I don't recognize you lately," she said softly. He turned to her. "Maybe I'm finally becoming who I was supposed to be." Her eyes glistened. "Then promise me something. When it's over, win or lose, and you'll still know how to breathe." Marcus didn't speak. He only nodded, his gaze distant, fixed on the courthouse lights outside their window, glowing like a challenge. The fluorescent lights in the courthouse conference room buzzed faintly, a sterile hum against the pulse in Marcus's temple. The air smelled of paper and stale coffee, the scent of bureaucracy. On the table sat 3 thick binders stamped City of Atlanta Police Department, Discovery Materials. Marcus flipped the first one open. Page after page of reports, logs, and internal memos. The city had finally complied with his motion for discovery. Months of stonewalling had ended. Reluctantly, he adjusted his glasses, pen tapping lightly against his notebook. Naomi had begged him to take a break this morning, but there was no time for rest now. The deeper he read, the colder his hands became. The officer's official statements, nearly identical. Subject appeared agitated. Subject resisted verbal commands. Use of force deemed necessary for officer safety. He'd expected lies. But seeing them written, stamped, and signed in triplicate still made his stomach twist. Then came the internal email chain. One message, dated the day after the arrest, made his chest tighten. Handled another one of those woke lawyers last night. Guess the law doesn't protect you when you mouth off to the wrong guy. Officer Robert Taylor, another replied. Just another payday waiting to happen. They'll cry racism. City'll cut a check. Business as usual. Marcus's fingers froze. He felt a tremor rise through him. Not of fear, but fury. Controlled, precise fury, he whispered under his breath. Business as usual. 2 hours later, he stood before Amira, who scanned the printouts, jaw tightening. This is gold, she said. You realize what this means? Pattern, intent, cover-up. It's more than that, Marcus said quietly. It's proof they laughed about it. She looked up. You're going public with this, aren't you? Marcus hesitated. Not yet. I need one more thing first, the dash cam footage. Good luck getting that, she said. The department's been denying journalists for weeks. I'm not a journalist, Marcus said, gathering his papers. I'm the plaintiff. That evening, Marcus filed a motion to compel production of evidence. The request was surgical, written in the measured tone of someone who'd spent his life trusting words to deliver justice. When the hearing came 2 weeks later, the courtroom was packed. Reporters filled the benches. Naomi sat near the back, hands clasped tight in her lap. Across the aisle, City Attorney Carla Jennings adjusted her blazer, smiling the tight, polite smile of someone paid to make truth sound complicated. Your Honor, she began, the plaintiff's request for the dashcam footage is unnecessary. It's a matter of officer safety and departmental protocol. Marcus rose from his seat, voice calm but cutting. Respectfully, Your Honor, the footage is the only objective record of what happened. If the department believes in transparency, they should welcome its release. Carla turned toward him. Mr. Reed, this isn't about transparency. It's about precedent. We can't allow internal materials to be misused in the court of public opinion. Marcus leaned slightly forward. The court of public opinion didn't throw me against a car. Your officers did. A ripple went through the gallery. The judge, Ana Maria Castillo, tapped her gavel softly. Enough, the motion is granted. The department will produce the footage within 10 business days. Carla's jaw tightened. Your Honor, 10 days, the judge repeated. When Marcus received the USB drive the following week, his hands shook slightly as he inserted it into his laptop. Naomi sat beside him. Are you sure you want to watch this again? He nodded. I have to. The screen flickered to life. Rain-slick streets, headlights reflecting off wet pavement. The timestamp read 23:47. The cruiser pulled behind Marcus's BMW. The officers exited, approaching fast. License and registration. Marcus's own voice came through the speaker. Calm but tired. Is there a problem, officer? Then the moment. The shove. The impact. The metallic echo of cuffs. Naomi flinched. But then, a voice off camera, one Marcus hadn't heard that night. Officer Taylor's, let him talk. The louder he gets, the better it looks, Marcus froze. He replayed it once, twice, a third time. The louder he gets, the better it looks. His pulse quickened. They baited me, he said quietly. They wanted a reaction. Naomi reached for his hand. Marcus, please, he closed the laptop. No more silence. The next morning, he filed a supplemental evidence motion attaching the dashcam transcript. It spread through media circles like wildfire. By evening, the department was in full denial mode. A press release claimed context missing and audio distortion. But the people had heard enough. The footage flooded social media. 1,000 retweets, 10,000 comments, calls for resignation. Marcus turned off his phone. The noise didn't matter. What mattered now was the courtroom. A week later, during deposition, Marcus faced Officer Taylor across a long table. Taylor looked uneasy in his pressed uniform, a union lawyer seated beside him. Mr. Taylor, Marcus began, voice steady. In your email dated September 19th, you referred to me as one of those woke lawyers. Would you care to explain what that meant? Taylor shifted in his seat. It was a joke. A joke, Marcus repeated, jotting it down. Would you describe wrongful arrests as humorous, Officer Taylor? Taylor's lawyer objected. Badgering, Marcus continued smoothly. And on the dash cam you're heard saying, the louder he gets, the better it looks, and what did you mean by that? Taylor's eyes darted to the lawyer. No comment. Then let the record show, Marcus said, looking directly at him, that the officer declined to explain his own words. The silence that followed was electric. That night, Marcus sat alone in his office. The adrenaline from the deposition faded, leaving behind exhaustion. He scrolled through the day's headlines. Dashcam exposes racial bias in high-profile case. His inbox overflowed with interviews, praise, outrage. Yet beneath it all, he felt a hollowness he couldn't name. Naomi entered quietly, placing a sandwich on his desk. Eat something, she said. He smiled faintly. You don't have to take care of me like I'm broken. Her gaze softened. I'm not taking care of you because you're broken, Marcus. I'm doing it because you still bleed. He looked down, her words cutting deeper than any cross-examination. Later that night, as the city hummed outside, Marcus opened his laptop again. Not to read, but to write. He began drafting his opening statement for the upcoming trial. This case isn't about one arrest. It's about a system that calls justice a joke, that weaponizes silence and paperwork to protect power. But the law, when wielded without fear, can still shine light into the darkest corners. He paused, staring at the words, then added one more line. They told me the louder I got, the better it looked. So now I intend to be heard. He leaned back, eyes burning. The city outside was sleepless, and so was he. Somewhere in the shadows of the same city, Officer Daniels sat in his car, rewatching the same footage. The guilt crawling through him like a fever. The line between justice and survival was blurring for them both, and the courtroom. War was only just beginning. The morning sun sliced through the courthouse windows like a blade. Reporters gathered on the steps, microphones raised, camera shutters snapping with mechanical hunger. Inside, Marcus stood by the defense table, heart steady but mind sharp as steel. His navy blue suit fit like armor. Naomi sat in the front row, hands clasped tight, whispering a silent prayer. The air felt electric, part anticipation, part dread. Across the aisle, City Attorney Carla Jennings stacked her files neatly, the portrait of confidence. But Marcus caught the tremor in her hand when she lifted her pen. The clerk's voice broke the silence. All rise. Superior Court of Fulton County is now in session. The Honorable Judge Maria Castillo presiding. Wood creaked. Fabric rustled. The courtroom rose as one. Marcus met the judge's eyes. Calm, assessing, unflinching. She nodded once. Let's proceed, she said. The city opened first. Carla's tone was smooth, practiced. Your Honor, this case has been sensationalized by media coverage and half-truths. The plaintiff, while undoubtedly humiliated, escalated the situation by refusing lawful orders. The officers acted in good faith. Marcus stood. Objection. Argument outside the scope of opening. Judge Castillo raised an eyebrow. Sustained. Ms. Jennings, confine yourself to the facts. Carla pressed her lips together, regrouping. The city maintains the officers followed department protocol. Any language or conduct in private emails, while regrettable, does not equate to racial discrimination. Her gaze slid toward the jury box, landing on each face like a silent plea. Don't make this about race. When she finished, the judge nodded. Mr. Reed, your opening. Marcus rose, buttoned his jacket, and stepped into the open floor. He felt the jury's eyes. 12 strangers holding the weight of his life's story. He began softly. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you've heard that this case is about protocol. I'm here to tell you it's about power. A pause. The room leaned in. On September 18th, I was driving home from work. A black man, a lawyer, a father. 2 officers stopped me. They didn't ask questions. They made assumptions. They made choices. He walked slowly toward the evidence screen, and every choice they made that night followed a pattern. One we'll prove wasn't a mistake. He clicked a remote. The first slide appeared, the dashcam still image frozen mid-frame, showing Marcus's face pressed against his own car window. This, Marcus said, voice steady, is what good faith looks like when power goes unchecked. The jury's eyes didn't leave the screen. By afternoon, Officer Taylor took the stand. His jaw was tight, posture defensive. Carla guided him carefully. "Officer Taylor, can you explain your reasoning for the stop?" "Yes, ma'am. Suspicious vehicle, tinted windows matching a prior report." "Did you know the plaintiff's identity at the time?" "No, ma'am." "Did you intend to target him because of race?" "Absolutely not," Carla nodded. No further questions. Marcus rose, carrying only a notepad and one printed email. "Officer Taylor," he began evenly, "you've been on the force 12 years?" "Yes. Decorated twice." "Yes. And you're familiar with departmental policy on racial bias training?" Taylor hesitated. "We take it annually." "Right," Marcus nodded. "So despite that training, you referred to me in an internal email as one of those woke lawyers who thinks the law protects him." Taylor's face reddened. "It was a private joke." "A joke about violating civil rights?" Marcus's voice sharpened. "No, sir. Just frustration. You people." He stopped, catching himself. The courtroom froze. Marcus tilted his head slightly. "You people?" Taylor swallowed hard. "I meant lawyers." Marcus's eyes locked on him. "I think the record will reflect your choice of words," the jury murmured. Carla's hand shot up. "Objection sustained," said the judge quickly. "Strike that from the record. Jury will disregard." But no one disregarded it. The silence that followed said everything. During recess, Marcus stood alone at the courthouse window, staring at the skyline. His reflection looked tired, older. Amira approached quietly. "You landed a hit," she whispered. He nodded, eyes still on the city. "Not enough. They'll twist it, spin it as nerves. Then give them something they can't spin," she said. "Something undeniable." Marcus turned toward her, determination reigniting in his eyes. "Tomorrow we play the footage." The next morning, the courtroom filled early. Reporters lined the aisles. The sound of clicking cameras felt like rain on glass. Judge Castillo's gavel fell. "Proceed." Marcus cued the dashcam video. The lights dimmed. The grainy image filled the monitors. Rain falling. Headlights glaring. They watched as the officers approached. Heard the calmness in Marcus's voice, the escalation, the shove, the cuffs. Then came the off-camera remark. "The louder he gets, the better it looks." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Carla stood abruptly. "Your Honor, we object to the audio's authenticity." Marcus turned. The department itself authenticated this footage during internal review. Judge Castillo nodded curtly. "Overruled. Continue playback." When the video ended, the room was silent. Marcus approached the jury, voice low but resonant. "The louder he gets, the better it looks." Those words aren't about safety. They're about spectacle. They wanted a scene. They wanted a black man in cuffs to look dangerous. That's not protocol, and that's prejudice. He returned to his seat. The silence lingered long after. After court adjourned, Marcus stepped outside into the swarm of reporters. "Mr. Reed, do you believe justice will be served?" He paused at the top of the courthouse steps. The cameras were blinding, the air sharp with flashes and questions. "I believe," he said carefully, "that justice is not automatic. It must be demanded, loudly, persistently, and without apology." He walked down the steps. Naomi waited at the bottom, eyes full of pride and fear. "You're making enemies," she whispered. "I already had them," Marcus replied softly. "Now they know my name." Later that night, back in his office, Marcus sat in the dark. The city outside pulsed with life, neon and noise. A notification flashed on his laptop. Anonymous email. Subject: "You should see this." He hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a single attachment, a body cam file labeled Taylor Internal Use.mp4. He clicked play. The footage began from Taylor's chest cam, shaky but clear. "You sure about this stop?" Another voice in Daniel's and asked. "Don't worry," Taylor replied. "Guy looks out of place. We'll make it clean." Marcus froze. His breath caught. The timestamp, 10 minutes before the stop, proof of premeditation. "Proof of intent," he whispered. They lied under oath. He called Amira immediately. "We have them." "The body cam, it's worse than we thought." She went silent for a beat. "Marcus, if that's real, you'll blow up their entire department." "I don't want to blow them up," he said, voice trembling between anger and purpose. "I want the truth to burn bright enough that no one ever tries this again." Amira exhaled. Then tomorrow we go nuclear. Marcus leaned back, exhaustion giving way to a grim, calm clarity. Outside his window, the courthouse lights glowed like sentinels against the dark. Tomorrow would be war. Not in the streets, but in the one place he still believed justice could fight back. And this time the truth had evidence. The next morning, the courthouse felt colder. The marble floors echoed louder, the air thicker with anticipation. Marcus walked through the front doors, clutching a flash drive, the body cam footage. It weighed almost nothing in his hand, yet it felt like holding a grenade. Amira was waiting outside the courtroom, phone in hand. "You're sure it's admissible?" He nodded. "Chain of custody checks out. Metadata intact. It's real," she exhaled shakily. "Then this isn't just your case anymore." "It's theirs." Marcus's lips curved faintly. "Then let's make it count." When court came to order, the tension was visible, shoulders tight, whispers fading as Judge Castillo entered. "All rise." Marcus rose slowly, locking eyes with Officer Taylor, seated at the witness table again, visibly paler than yesterday. His attorney whispered something, but Taylor wasn't listening. He could feel the shift in the room. The judge nodded. "Mr. Reed, you may proceed with new evidence." Marcus stepped forward. "Your Honor, the plaintiff submits Exhibit 22. Body cam footage recovered from Officer Taylor's own device, recently provided through anonymous disclosure. Metadata confirms its authenticity." Carla Jennings shot to her feet. "Objection." This was not obtained through official discovery. Marcus's voice cut through, calm but sharp. "The evidence was hidden, Your Honor, concealed by the department. The chain of custody proves deliberate suppression." Judge Castillo frowned, turning toward Carla. "Ms. Jennings, did your office withhold this material?" Carla hesitated. "Too long. We were unaware of its existence." The judge's tone hardened. "That's not an answer." Marcus inserted the flash drive. "Let the truth speak for itself." The courtroom lights dimmed again. The monitor flickered to life. The timestamp, 23:36, 10 minutes before the stop. Taylor's voice steady but smug. "You sure about this stop?" Then Daniel's reply, anxious. "He's just driving, Rob. You got cause." Taylor, "Doesn't matter. Guy looks out of place in that car. We'll make it clean." The audience gasped audibly. Marcus stood frozen, eyes locked on the screen. Every syllable another nail in the coffin of their defense. Then Taylor's own laughter filled the room. "You film it right. It'll look justified." Naomi covered her mouth in the front row. Someone in the gallery whispered, "My God." The video ended. Marcus turned to face the court. His voice was low but carried like thunder. "We'll make it clean." Those were the words of an officer sworn to uphold the law. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a setup. He looked at Taylor. "You planted the stop. You knew there was no cause." Taylor's lawyer sputtered, "Objection!" Judge Castillo slammed her gavel. "Overruled." "The jury has heard the tape." Taylor's face broke. A flicker of panic, then shame, then something like defeat. During recess, Marcus sat in the hallway outside the courtroom, elbows on his knees. His breath came slow but shallow. Amira approached quietly. "You okay?" He didn't answer right away. "You ever win so hard it feels like losing?" She frowned. "What do you mean?" He rubbed his temples. "That footage, it'll bury them, but it'll bury the department too. Every cop who isn't guilty will still pay for the ones who are." "Marcus," Amira said softly, "that's not on you. That's on the system that protected them." He gave a bitter half-smile. "The system I used to believe I could fix." Before she could answer, the bailiff opened the door. "Court's back in session." Taylor took the stand again, this time trembling. Carla's tone was icy. "Officer Taylor, do you deny the authenticity of that footage?" He swallowed. "No. Do you deny saying those words?" Silence. Marcus rose. "Officer Taylor, one more question. After you arrested me, do you remember what you said in your report?" Taylor nodded weakly. "That you resisted." Marcus's eyes sharpened. "And do you stand by that today?" Taylor hesitated, voice cracking. "No." A collective intake of breath. "No," he said again, louder this time. "You didn't resist. We wanted a story. Something to show the brass we were doing something." He turned toward Marcus. "I'm sorry." The courtroom erupted. Gasps, whispers, reporters scrambling for phones. Judge Castillo's gavel thundered. "Order in the court." Taylor slumped forward, face in his hands. That night, Every major network led with the same headline: Body cam footage exposes fabricated arrest, officer confesses in court. Marcus watched from his office as his name scrolled across the ticker. Attorney Marcus Reed, the man they'd once called agitated suspect. Naomi entered quietly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You did it." He stared at the screen. "No, Naomi, I proved it." "That's not the same as justice." She moved closer. "Then what is?" He looked down, eyes wet. "Justice is when no one else has to prove their humanity just to breathe." Naomi's hand tightened on his. "Then you're closer than you think." The next morning, as Marcus prepared to head to court for closing arguments, a knock came at his office door. It was Officer Daniels, the younger one. Plain clothes, eyes hollow with guilt. Marcus tensed. "You shouldn't be here." "I know," Daniels said, voice cracking. "But I had to. Taylor's not the only one. There's more footage, other stops, other men like you." Marcus's chest tightened. "You're saying this wasn't isolated?" Daniels shook his head. "Not even close." He slid a small SD card across the desk. "I can't live with it anymore." Marcus stared at the card. "If you testify, they'll destroy you." "I already destroyed myself," Daniels said quietly. "This is me trying to rebuild something." Then he left, a no goodbye, no handshake, just the sound of a broken man walking away from a broken institution. In court that afternoon, Marcus's final argument burned with restrained fury. This case isn't just about two officers. It's about the silence that lets them act like gods. It's about how power bends truth, until someone refuses to stay quiet. He turned toward the jury, voice soft but unwavering. "I was taught the law protects us, that justice is blind, but I learned she sees color just fine. What matters is what we do with that knowledge. Do we look away or do we make her see?" The courtroom was still. Even Carla lowered her eyes. Judge Castillo's gavel sounded. "The jury will deliberate." Marcus sat, exhaling for the first time in days. His whole body trembled, and not from fear but release. The war wasn't over, but something inside him had shifted. For the first time since that night on the roadside, Marcus felt like he could breathe again. That evening, the jury hadn't yet returned, but the courthouse steps were already flooded with people, protesters, journalists, supporters. Signs read, "We see you, Marcus Reed. Make justice real." Inside, alone in a hallway of echoes, Marcus leaned against the wall, eyes closed. Naomi's voice came softly beside him. "What if they don't convict?" He opened his eyes. "Then the world will have seen it." "That's enough to start something." She smiled faintly. "And if they do?" Marcus's gaze drifted toward the courtroom doors. "Then maybe, just maybe, the law still remembers what it's supposed to be." The courthouse was silent except for the faint hum of fluorescent lights. 12 jurors sat stone-faced, eyes fixed on the foreperson. Marcus's pulse thrummed like a slow drumbeat. He could hear it in his ears, in his throat. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Judge Castillo cleared her throat. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" The foreperson, a middle-aged black woman with tears brimming in her eyes, rose. "Yes, Your Honor, we have." She unfolded the paper with trembling hands. "In the case of Marcus Reed versus City of Atlanta Police Department, we, the jury, find in favor of the plaintiff." Gasps filled the room. Someone in the back sobbed. Marcus's hand went to his chest. Not a gesture of triumph, but disbelief, the foreperson continued. "We award damages in the amount of $3 million and recommend disciplinary investigation of the involved officers and department." The courtroom erupted. Judge Castillo's gavel struck the bench. "Order!" But even her voice carried a hint of emotion. Marcus sat down slowly. Naomi pressed her hands to her mouth. Amira's eyes glistened. Carla Jennings stared blankly at her papers, the picture of a professional who just witnessed her own argument collapse. Taylor bowed his head, silent. Daniels in the gallery looked hollow but free. Outside, the steps of the courthouse exploded with noise. Reporters, protesters, allies. The storm Marcus never wanted but somehow started. "Mr. Reed, how do you feel about the verdict?" He paused at the microphone. The sun burned white against his skin. Cameras clicked like rainfall. "I feel..." He hesitated, voice catching. "I feel seen, but not satisfied." A hush spread. This verdict doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't undo the fear or the humiliation, but it means truth still matters. And maybe that's where justice begins. He turned away from the cameras, walking down the marble steps where months ago he'd stood alone. Just another suspect. Now he was something else. Not a hero. Not a symbol. Just a man who refused to stay quiet. Later that night, Marcus sat in his office, surrounded by silence. Stacks of files still lined the walls, but they felt lighter now. Ghosts finally put to rest. Naomi entered quietly. The phones haven't stopped ringing. News outlets, podcasts, universities. They all want you to speak, he smiled faintly. They want a soundbite. She came closer, so give them one that matters. Marcus looked down at his hands. I'm not sure I have anything left to say. Naomi sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. Then just rest. You've earned that much. The next morning, Marcus stood at his front porch with a mug of coffee, watching the sunrise paint the city gold. His phone buzzed, a voicemail. It was Officer Daniels. I turned in the rest of the footage. I'm resigning. Maybe someday they'll build a department that deserves the uniform. Thank you, Mr. Reed, for not hating all of us. Marcus exhaled slowly, eyes stinging. He whispered to the empty air. I never wanted to hate anyone. I just wanted to live. 2 weeks later, Marcus stood at a podium at Howard University School of Law, invited to speak before graduating students. He adjusted the mic. The crowd hushed. I used to believe justice was a statue, he began. Cold, blind, unchanging. But now I know she's human. She stumbles, she learns, she bleeds. And she only stands when we keep her upright. He paused, scanning young faces. Eager, afraid, determined. You're inheriting a system that still gets it wrong. But if you stay loud, stay relentless, stay human, it can be made right. The applause rose like thunder. For the first time, Marcus didn't feel small in front of power. He was power, the kind that speaks, not shouts. That evening, back home, he found Naomi on the couch reading. The TV played muted news coverage of his speech. She smiled softly. You're trending again. He chuckled. Can't imagine why. She looked at him for a moment, a long, quiet moment, then said, You changed something, Marcus. He shook his head. I didn't change anything. I just told the truth. She reached out, taking his hand. That's how everything changes. He squeezed her fingers gently, eyes distant. It cost us, though. Naomi's gaze softened. Everything worth something does. At midnight, unable to sleep, Marcus walked out onto the porch again. The street was quiet, the kind of silence that feels like healing. He looked up at the night sky, the faint hum of city life in the distance. Then he saw it. A police cruiser rolling slowly past his street corner. Not speeding, not aggressive, just there. For a heartbeat, his chest tightened. Reflex, memory. But the cruiser rolled on. No lights, no confrontation. Just two silhouettes passing in the dark. Marcus watched until it disappeared, then whispered to himself, Not fear, not anymore. He turned back toward the house. Naomi's silhouette waited by the door, bathed in warm light. He smiled. Come back inside, she said softly. He did. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't look over his shoulder. Epilogue. 6 months later, a headline scrolled across national news. City announces police reform initiative following Reed verdict. Officer Taylor and dismissed. Department chief resigned. Federal oversight implemented. The reforms weren't perfect. They never would be. But they were something. Marcus watched the coverage quietly from his office. He no longer practiced criminal defense. He'd joined a civil rights nonprofit instead. The phone rang. Another case, another name, another fight. He picked it up. This is Marcus Reed. Pause. A shaky voice on the other end. A young man, scared. They stopped me last night. Said I looked suspicious. I don't know what to do. Marcus looked out the window at the city skyline. Bright, flawed, alive. He answered softly, You start by not being silent. He pulled a notepad closer, pen ready. Tell me everything. The war wasn't over. But now, Marcus was no longer just fighting to prove his innocence. He was fighting to make sure someone else wouldn't have to. Rain pattered softly against the courthouse steps, the same ones where Marcus had once stood in handcuffs. Now, a mural stretched across the brick wall beside it. A painted portrait of Marcus Reed, eyes steady, expression calm but unyielding. Below it, in bold white letters, "Justice is not given, it's demanded." He didn't commission it. The community did. Marcus stood in the drizzle, umbrella in hand, staring up at it. Naomi stepped beside him, holding a thermos. "Do you like it?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "It's strange seeing yourself as paint. Strange good or strange bad. Strange necessary." She leaned against him. "People need symbols. You gave them one." Marcus shook his head. "I gave them a case file in a courtroom. They made it a movement. Behind them, a group of students filmed a short documentary. A girl with a camera approached hesitantly. "Mr. Reed, can we ask a question for our school project?" He nodded. She swallowed nervously. "Do you forgive them? The officers?" Marcus paused, umbrella dripping steadily. "I don't think forgiveness is the right word," he said finally. "Forgiveness is personal. Accountability is public. What I want is change, not apology." The girl nodded slowly, eyes wide. "Thank you, sir." As she walked away, Naomi slipped her hand into his. That was a good answer. He looked out at the mural again. "It's the only one I've got." Later that afternoon, Marcus sat inside his nonprofit's modest office. Papers, law journals, and coffee cups scattered across the table. The sign on the door read, "Reed Legal Foundation, for Civil Rights and Equal Justice." Amira typed away at her desk. "We got another intake from South Fulton. Excessive force case. 2 witnesses." Marcus nodded. "Bring them in tomorrow." Naomi appeared in the doorway. "You've been here since 7. Eat something." He held up a sandwich absent-mindedly. "Already on it," she smiled. "That's from yesterday." He sighed. "So I'm multitasking starvation." They both laughed softly, a rare sound that felt like air returning after too long underwater. That evening, Marcus's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Marcus Reed speaking. A familiar voice came through. "Officer Daniels." "Just wanted you to know," Daniels said quietly. "Internal Affairs wrapped up the investigation. Taylor's facing federal charges. The other 2 took plea deals." Marcus exhaled slowly. "I see." "They're scared now," Daniels added. "Not of getting caught, of being seen." A pause. "Thank you for what you did," Daniels said. "You didn't have to testify the way you did, fair. You could have buried us all." Marcus's voice softened. "Fairness isn't mercy, Daniels. It's responsibility." Then he hung up. For a long moment he sat still, phone heavy in his palm. The rain outside had stopped. The city was quiet. A few days later, Marcus appeared on a late-night talk show, something he'd initially refused but Naomi convinced him to do. The host leaned forward, smile polished but curious. "Marcus Reed, the man whose case sparked national reform. What do you want people to take from your story?" Marcus looked directly at the camera. "That this wasn't just my story. It's America's story. And until justice stops depending on luck and/or complexion, it's unfinished." Applause followed. The host nodded respectfully. "And do you think it's changing?" Marcus hesitated, then smiled faintly. "I think change is a verb, not a noun. You keep doing it, every day, or it stops existing." The next morning, that line trended online. Change is a verb students painted it on protest banners. Lawyers quoted it in speeches. Even the police reform committee printed it on their internal memo. Naomi teased him, showing her phone. "You're a meme now," he groaned. "That's the worst kind of immortality," she grinned. "Maybe, but it's working." Weeks passed. The city breathed differently now, cautious, reflective. Patrol cars had new body cams. Training programs shifted focus. Community boards gained power. But progress wasn't a victory march. It was a slow climb through mud. Every day another complaint, another injustice, another reminder that winning one case doesn't erase a history. Marcus knew that. It didn't discourage him. It grounded him. He began mentoring young attorneys, teaching them what law school never did, how to survive and stay human. One evening, a knock came at his office door. He looked up. A young black man, maybe 21, stood there in a suit too big for him, nervous but determined. "Mr. Reed," he said, "I just passed the bar. I wanted to thank you, your case. It's the reason I chose this path." Marcus rose slowly, extending a hand. "Congratulations. You're about to make a lot of people uncomfortable." The young man laughed awkwardly. "I hope so, sir." Marcus studied him, saw something of his younger self in those eyes. "Fear, idealism, fight. Then you'll be fine," Marcus said quietly. That night back home, Marcus sat on the porch again. The same quiet street, the same chair, but the air felt different, lighter somehow. Naomi joined him, 2 mugs of tea in hand. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "How strange it is that justice and peace rarely visit together." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "Maybe peace is what comes after justice. You just have to wait long enough." He didn't answer. He just listened to the distant sounds of laughter, the hum of traffic, the soft rustle of wind through the trees. The world hadn't changed overnight, but it was trying. A week later, Marcus received a letter in the mail. No return address, handwritten. He opened it carefully. "Mr. Reed, my name is Taylor. I know I don't deserve your attention. I wanted you to know that I watched the trial replay every night. I heard things I never let myself hear before. I lost everything, my badge, my career. But maybe I found something too, for what it's worth. I'm sorry. A former officer." Marcus read the letter twice, then set it down. He didn't feel triumph. He didn't feel pity. He just felt quiet. He slipped the letter into his drawer beside the case files, and not to forget it, but to remember what it cost to reach that line of ink. As the night deepened, Naomi called from the kitchen. "You coming to bed?" Marcus turned off the lamp. "In a minute." He walked once more to the porch, the city spread out before him, the sky heavy with stars. He thought of everything. The courtroom, the cameras, the cuffs, the faces that refused to look at him, and those that finally did. He whispered softly to the dark, "Echoes don't fade. They teach." A breeze moved through the trees, carrying his words somewhere unseen, and for the first time Marcus believed it. Not just in justice, but in the echo of it.